welcome to the Explorer video for August 20th and 21st. We are still working on studying the Bible. We've already talked about where it came from, how it was written, how it was translated, how it was, what it was written on, what it's made up of. And we talked last week about the fact that the entire Bible is about Jesus Christ. So today we're going to be talking about the idea that the fact that the Bible is God's true word and how our kids can really embrace and really own that fact. So the first thing we're going to do is a simple breakout. You're going to have the books of the Bible, and there are some missing. So you can, as the kids come in, you can just sit them down, give them a paper, and have them look at the table of contents to fill in the missing books. Or if you have some kids who are a little bit more accelerated, have them fill it in before they look at the table of contents. See if they can do it without looking. So that's your first thing. And then you can go straight into the lesson, which is the Bible as the authority in your life. So we talk a lot about what authority means first, helping kids to understand what that concept of authority is, and who has authority, who has rightful authority in their life right now. And then we talk about how we can trust that the Bible is God's authority, that God's authority comes to us through his word, the Bible. And I kind of relate that to them in their own lives by using Ephesians 6:1, which is obey your parents, for it's the right thing to do. So we kind of weave that verse in and out for them to have a tactile understanding of authority. So we also talk about how we can know that the Bible is God's true word because God provided us with a lot of examples, witnesses within the Bible defending just that. He knew that we would need that, and so he provided that information to us in a variety of different ways. So he gave it to us by the witnesses, the writers themselves of the Old Testament. He gave it to us by the writers of the New Testament, and he gave it to us by Jesus Christ himself. And so we go through three separate verses, one from the Old Testament, one from Paul, and then one from Jesus himself, and how all three of these different varieties of witnesses express how the Bible is God's true and living word. And the one we kind of unpack the most is Jesus's words. And we talk in Matthew 4:4 about how this is when Jesus was in the wilderness and he's being tempted by Satan. And he says that it is written, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And so we talk about Jesus' example, that he doesn't just believe that the Bible is God's true word, that the scriptures are God's true words, but he follows them even amidst trouble, even amidst temptation. And so we are to follow Jesus' example. And so the next part of this lesson is really going to take place of your reflect questions this week. And so I have two separate circumstances. I give you two scenarios of something that could happen in a kid's life, and then some questions and some Bible references to unpack those references. So I would suggest when you're done with this part of the lesson, before you go into the application part, I would break your kids up into a couple different groups. If you're like Saturday night or Fort Lupton, I would break them into age groups, first and second, third and fourth, fifth and kindergarten first. You know what I'm saying? Just break them into smaller subsets because this application will be different for a first grader than it would be for a fifth grader. Otherwise, if you're in classes that are just fourth and fifth or just fifth, just break them up into smaller groups with as many helpers as you have so that you can really have kind of a great conversation with just a few kids and really unpack these things. So your two scenarios are, one has to do with a dynamic between a brother and a sister, and the sister really, really frustrating the brother or vice versa, and what God's word tells us about that, and how we can be like Jesus and not just know God's word, but follow God's word. And then the second breakout, why can't I remember this word I'm looking for? This second situation is about being influenced by your friends in a poor way. You're in a situation where your friends are doing something that you know is wrong, and how do you respond, and what does the Bible say about that? So I hope these will be really cool, really good, fun breakouts for these kids to talk about something that's super applicable in their lives. Most of your kids probably have gone through, if not one, both of these circumstances, and how they can, I hope, through the end of this lesson, they can really start to understand and grasp the concepts that God's word is so applicable even to their lives, if they're 7, if they're 12, if they're 35, and that we can do like Jesus and we can use God's word to help us in any situation. So that is your lesson and your reflect questions. And then your craft is really simple this week. It's you have really wide ribbon in your boxes, and you will just cut a pretty long strand of it for each kid and have them write out the verse on it, and then they can tie it around their wrist, so it's a verse bracelet. And there's a picture of it in your curriculum. So that is it. That is week 3 of studying the Bible. And next week we will be talking about how the Bible is an incredible treasure and something that we should be just immensely grateful for. So have a great week.